In this lab, we will deploy a Kubernetes dashboard within our Kubernetes cluster. So what's a Kubernetes dashboard? It's just like a graphical user interface to communicate with a Kubernetes cluster. It will let us manage our applications that run in the cluster and troubleshoot them, as well as managing the cluster itself. Kubernetes dashboard doesn't come pre-built with Kubernetes cluster, so we need to manually deploy it within the cluster. The Kubernetes dashboard will look like this. We will see throughout the lab how to get this kind of dashboard up and running all the time to monitor, manage, and troubleshoot our Kubernetes cluster. So let's start. Before we start deploying Kubernetes dashboard within our cluster, make sure our cluster has already been created and we have kubectl installed in our machine that will be used to communicate with the cluster. First, before deploying Kubernetes dashboard in the cluster, we need to deploy another application which is called metrics server. This metrics server will be used within the cluster to scale the number of pods in a replication controller, deployments or replica sets based on CPU utilization and other metrics. First, download the metrics server application from GitHub with curl command. Once downloaded, extract that file. Once extracted, you will see a directory named metrics server followed by the version number. Move into that directory. Then move into deploy directory. Here you might see directories for different versions. For example, in my case, I can see we have version 1.7 and 1.8 plus. Let's move into the latest version, which is 1.8 plus. Here we can see a bunch of YAML files for Kubernetes objects that's needed for the deployment of the metrics server. Let's create all the objects with kubectl apply command. It creates a bunch of objects such as deployments, service accounts, cluster role, and so on. We can also check that the metrics service application has been deployed with kubectl get deployments command. So metrics server has been deployed within the cluster. It'll help us to monitor various metrics of the cluster and scale in or out number of pods based on those metrics. Now, let's deploy the Kubernetes dashboard within our cluster. Deploying this dashboard is as simple as metrics server application. First, download the YAML definition file of the dashboard application from this address. This file defines what's needed for the dashboard application, such as secrets, cluster role, deployments, services, and so on. Once downloaded, execute the kubectl apply command on this definition file. It will create all of those objects defined within the YAML file. We are almost there. One more thing needs to be done. By default, the Kubernetes dashboard user has limited access. We need to create a service account and cluster role binding that we can use to securely connect to our dashboard with admin level permissions. Let's create a service account with kubectl create service account command, followed by the name of the service account, for example, admin user. Now bind that service account with a cluster admin role using kubectl create cluster role binding command. A cluster admin role has been created that will let us access into the dashboard as an admin. Now, to access the dashboard, use kubectl proxy command. It will start the application on localhost at some random port. You might get other different port number. Now, go to the browser. Then type localhost : then the port number, followed by appy/v1/namespace/Kubernetes Dashboard /services/https:/Kubernetes Dashboard : then /proxy, then /hashtag, then exclamation mark, then followed by /login, and then press enter. Once you've pressed enter, you'll be redirected to the sign-in page of the dashboard application. You can either sign with kubeconfig or token. We will use token-based login. So from where we can get this token, execute this command. What does it do? If you press enter, it will show you the token used for admin user service account. This service account has full admin access. So copy the token and paste it here in the sign in page and press on the sign in button. If everything has been done properly, you'll be redirected to the dashboard application. So this is the dashboard I was talking about. Here you can do lots of things graphically, such as deploying applications, scaling the number of pods, monitoring the health of the cluster, and so on. For example, we can see how many pods are there in our cluster within default namespace, how many deployments are there, how many replicas sets, services, and so on. We can edit the YAML definitions of any object from the dashboard. We can also check the status of our nodes. We can also see the CPU and memory utilization of the cluster. We can do the same thing for other namespaces as well. In a nutshell, we can do everything that can be done from the terminal. It is just a graphical way of dealing with a Kubernetes cluster. So that's all about deploying Kubernetes Dashboard on Google Kubernetes Engine.